the Marxist-Leninist revolution. But they knew in America they had a society that was too committed to an egalitarian, anybody can come here and make it middle-class, capitalistic, Judeo-Christian culture. And so these deviant bastards who came to heaven from hell. In fact, I believe it was Adorno that lived in Santa Monica on 26th Street near me. About as nice a location in the 1940s and the 1950s. And he lived there with Bertolt Brecht, the writer, the playwright. And he writes about how everybody is too cheerful and too consumer-minded. Do you see that in Barack Obama and the left and their hatred of Walmart and their attacking on our society? They have an ideal of what the perfect society is, and you don't fit into it. They don't like the individualism, and they don't like the Judeo-Christianity. They don't like your ethics whatsoever. And so the long march through the institutions was Hollywood, academia, and the mainstream media. And the Frankfurt School basically set up its campus at Columbia University right next door to Columbia Journalism. And that's where the problem begins. Journalism in this country was always partisan. Journalism in this country was always a middle class, lower middle class. Anybody can report that a person with a buggy just ran over a bum. Okay, it just takes basic sentence structure. But in these elitist J schools, they found a type of cheese eating elitist freak from Montauk who walks around with a weapon of objectivity. There's no such thing as objectivity, but objectivity is a weapon that they use to shut you up. Because the only place where you can get this shield of objectivity, this weapon of objectivity, is through the J schools, where if you look at NYU or Northwestern or Missouri or Columbia, and you look at the professors, you don't have to look very far. You go to their Twitter feeds, and they're radical Marxists with Occupy Wall Street hashtags. They're fighting the fight right now. Oh yeah, but they're objective. The war has been a cultural war for the last 50 years, and we're just waking up to the fact, not that it exists, we've known it. Russia's talked about it. Alan Bloom talked about it or wrote about it in The Closing of the American Mind. Political correctness, multiculturalism, or cultural Marxism. It is the communist infiltration of our country through cultural means. And for the last 22 years, we've driven back and forth in traffic, instead of from 9 to 5, from 9 to 6, because we had to pay the piper more. Then we started having to drive from 9 to 7, because the same people say we need to pay more of our fair share. Then we said, okay, fine, I'll start getting up at 7 o'clock in the morning in order to drive to work. And they said, you can't drive to work because your car is burning fossil fuels. And they've done everything they can to turn you into a mental pretzel in order for you to finally just accede, to quit, to just say, fine, I'm just quitting. You know, we're going to give up this country. Fine, you beat us. You nailed us at every dam. We can't build a dam anymore. We can't fish anymore. We can't hunt anymore. We can't pick a mushroom off of our own property without getting fined because you need a permit for it. They thought that they would win the war of attrition. They thought that all we do is point out that it exists, but we never fought back until the last 3 years. And they're freaking out. And we're finally starting to take our culture back.
Yeah.
That's why they hate us. The Tea Party movement, to which I will tell every person, my friends and potentially former friends in Washington, D.C., the elite within the Republican Party, who poo-poo Sarah Palin, Michelle Bachmann, Herman Cain, anyone, Rick Perry, any of the people that showed up at the Tea Parties, they poo-pooed them because we're stinky apparently. They just stand off to the side, and I have to tell them, you understand that if it wasn't for this group of people, we would have lost the country, and you sat on the sidelines. There was the only response I saw after Barack Obama's election, which was framed by the objective, neutral, cheese-eating media, was that this was going to be a never-ending Obama era. He was that smart, he was that transcendent, he was that magical, that you just might as well just sit down and shut up. And these people who chose not to vet him were so vested in that narrative. It was a narrative that they created. It did not reflect the reality of a man who believes that there are 57 states. A man that calls members of the service corpsmen. A man who believes that there's an intercontinental railroad. I would say this, he has spent trillions on shovel-ready jobs, none of which I've been able to show anyone other than a building in Fremont that is currently unoccupied. If there was a fast-speed intercontinental railroad, I would probably be less critical of this president, because I'd be able to show it to my children and say, look at what American ingenuity can bring. But we don't even have that. I would take that bridge to nowhere. I don't even know. I can't even tell you where gravel has been moved. This just went into nowhere. It went into a vortex of Harry Reid and Nancy Pelosi's, friends and family network. So we find ourselves in the middle of what I would call an existential civil war between the radical left and we the people. And it is existing right now. Their desperation first showed itself when they decided to frame us, we who clean up after ourselves at our tea parties, as violent and racist. And so to juxtapose us versus them, well, Katie Couric and Brian Williams and Charlie Gibson were every night framing us as the bad guys in a way that they would never portray radical Islamists because they're too sensitive. But their neighbors are bad people, violent and racist, absent evidence, just guilt without a trial. They juxtaposed our alleged Janet Napolitano portrayed potential violence. They created the coffee party, which was supposed to be a contrast to our bombast and our violence. And Katie and Brian and Charlie would go to coffee parties and sit there, and the tattooed, dazed, Rage Against the Machine types, yes, we're looking for more peaceful solutions than what this violent and racist Tea Party is doing. These people seem reasonable, and these people seem unreasonable. Well, that manifested itself in electoral losses of epic proportion. We're all so smart now, we're all trained. Howie Kurtz doesn't need to be a media critic anymore, because we're all media critics, and we saw it to be the crap that it is, which is pure propaganda. And they gave the coffee party a platform and accepted the premise of their virtue. It was manifestly obvious, because they're Rage Against the Machine liberals, and they eat cheese, and they go to Whole Foods, and they drive Priuses, and they're good, and their bumper stickers will remind you how good they are. And we're inherently bad. And then we beat the living crap out of them in the elections. We beat them in 2009. We beat them in 2009 with the Scott Brown. Was that 2009?
Was it Virginia?
Yeah, well, I know that Christie and McDonald won, and that was right after Acorn, and we had people on the ground, citizen journalists, as in you guys, in Massachusetts and Virginia, out there looking for SEIU types, out there trying to rig the process, and Acorn types, and those people did not know how to recover from what had happened within the last month and a half with the takedown of Acorn. And so that was a victory that could have been an anomaly, but in 2010, after a year of what I would guess was probably $1.3 trillion worth of free propaganda against we the people, racist, homophobe, potentially violent, Janine Garofalo, Bill Maher, Keith Olbermann, Katie Couric, who lost her job, thankfully. Constantly, we're guilty, we're guilty, we're guilty. Let us have a chance. Listen to us. Listen to our black conservatives who are bravely being called Uncle Toms, or the Hispanic conservatives, or even the gay conservatives, like going, we just want a free country. That's it. We believe in liberty. We don't believe in your perpetual state of bondage for the sake of the children. Or for the environment. It's interesting that every one of their heart-rendering thoughts, or movements, or scientific things is conspicuously directly tied to a wealth transfer system. Whether it be anthropogenic global warming, well then obviously the solution is to take money from the United States and transfer it to other places, or to cripple our economy while allowing for countries that don't have the technology to produce coal in a less, pollution creating manner. Just let them have free run at destroying the environment. They're hypocrites. It's not about the environment. It's not about helping the children. It's about their control of us. And they're totalitarians. They are. You show me a place where the left exists, where their instinct isn't to be totalitarian. I don't know. Free speech movement, Berkeley campus, Sproul Hall. Let's go there right now and put up a stand that says college Republicans, and let's start talking about Sharia law.